Hello there. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm coming to you with another Armada Commander breakdown, and today it's General Kraken, otherwise known as Aaron Cracken. I'm going to be breaking down this commander, taking a look at ships that he works with, ships that he doesn't work with, and do a sort of a ranking on which ships I think may work best with him. This is going to be a rough ranking because nothing is particularly super with him. But before I dive into this commander breakdown, I do want to talk to you about the Super Star Destroyer giveaway. If you didn't already know, I am giving away a Super Star Destroyer for Star Wars Armada, and all you have to do to enter that giveaway is become a subscriber and leave a comment on this or one of my videos. It's as simple as that. So just click that subscribe button, leave a comment at the end of the video, let me know what you think, and you are automatically entered to win. That will be announced on about the 21st of December of 2018. So make sure you enter to win that. If you're watching this in the future and that date has already passed, well, fear not, because I'm always running more giveaways, so hopefully you subscribe anyway, and go ahead and follow the latest videos as well. So that is about it. All right, let's dive into General Kraken. Now, for purposes of most of my commander breakdowns, I will go ahead and talk about every ship that is out there and rank them all. But General Kraken, let's take a close-up look at him. All right, while a friendly, small or medium ship is defending against a ship, if the defender is at speed 3 or higher, the attack is treated as obstructed. So, a couple of things that I want to talk about with this. First off, I'm not including any large ships in this list because he doesn't work with any of them. So General Kraken is not somebody you put, in a double MC80 list. You generally run General Kraken with all small ships, small or medium. Additionally, I'm not really going to talk about the Pelta with General Kraken just because of the fact that it cannot go speed 3. And I can potentially imagine a Pelta being in a fleet that has him, just for purposes of maybe you're running fleet command with the nav tokens and giving your guys the ability to change speed a little bit more. But I doubt that'll be the case all the time here, because generally my thoughts are with Kraken is that one of the best ways to run him is to have your ships either at speed 3 or 4, and then you don't really have to nav or change speed that much. You probably want them always at that speed. One thing I want to point out though, let's pull up another upgrade real quick, because it's worth mentioning here. We'll pull out an MC80 since that does make you vulnerable against. Well, no, I don't need to pull out an MC80. It makes you a little bit vulnerable against these little guys right here. Where are they? We're going to pull out the quad battery turrets. So that's one thing I'm not really crazy about General Kraken with, because he came out earlier, and now we've got this quad battery turrets, and these are kind of popular. Quad battery turrets are kind of popular. Whenever you're attacking a ship with a higher speed than yours, you may add a blue die to your attack pool. A lot of slow-rolling ships like to run these because they're really cheap, and they're not restricted to once per round, and they're not restricted to range. So somebody running General Crack, I'm obstructed? No problem, I'm getting an extra die anyway, and now that means I can have a really good chance of an accuracy at long range, which, with my red dice I might not have had. So, quad battery turrets are almost a straight-up counter to General Kraken, which is rough. The cool thing about that is, though, however, let's go back to my Nebulon here. If we're at long range and you've only got the one die, like a side arc shot from the Nebulon, if it's obstructed, like if you're shooting me with a Nebulon and I can force it to be obstructed, well, you won't be able to add that blue die in the first place. You won't be able to even take that shot. So let's talk about Nebulons. Using them with General Kraken. I don't think Nebulons are the best small ship to use with Kraken, but they can work. And it gives them actually some extra defense, which they can certainly use. Let's not pretend like that Nebulons can't use any defensive help they can get. They don't have redirect. They got a lot of shields in the front, but that narrow arc on the front, it's hard to always make sure that your opponent can only shoot your front arc. If you can manage it, that's great. Nebulons may actually want to run nav commands to make sure that they're pointed in the right direction, because that front arc is so narrow, it can be a little tricky to line it up just right. However, most of the time they're going to have that double arc or just a side arc, because their side arcs are so huge. So, having, your side arc get at least some defense, because then it'll be an obstructed shot, can help. Sometimes, in the case of where your opponent has only one red die to start out, that can really help alleviate an entire attack and deny them the entire ability to attack. So that's kind of cool in some ways. However, we have to look at a couple of other things here. It's I feel like because the Nebulon is so red die heavy that a lot of times I like to take a slow approach with my Nebulons. So like speed 1, it's keeping you at red dice range for a couple of reasons. For one, I get to use my evade there for defense, which is really good. For 2, you have much less dice that you can throw on me in general, and I'm still maximizing. Like a Victory Star Destroyer and a Nebulon are almost the same. Heck, a Nebulon-B and a Kuat have the same firepower at long range, but the Nebulons is less than half the points. So, and still almost the same shields in the front too, or at least comparable. And double brace, really can certainly help. And XI7s are, don't do much against the Nebulons. So having, Kraken with Nebulons can work. But the problem is it's only going to help during that encounter where you're, at long range and your opponent's trying to hit you, and then you really mitigate those dice. But the problem is the very next turn, you're probably going to be very, very close. And when they're rolling like 9 dice in your face, it's not really going to matter that one of them gets removed. You're probably dead anyway. So, I feel like Nebulons want to kind of take it slow and just inch forward at that speed. But then again, you always run the risk of maybe they're going fast also, and you overshoot them, and then you get the side and rear arc shot, and then maybe it does help that it's obstructed. It could be the thing that saves your life if you're able to, make sure that you're putting yourself out of position. I think just Nebulons are probably more on the high skill curve to fly well. There's a lot of people would say that Nebulons are one of the worst ships for the Rebels, maybe one of the worst ships in the game right now. And a lot of that has to do with those arcs and that weakness they have on their sides. I think that adds to the challenge and the fun factor. I actually love this ship, but I don't think Kraken is the best for them, especially when, we look at Kraken's 26 points, and we look at Mon Mothma, who's only 4 points more, and it seems like she's just so much better for a lot of ships. So, that's really one of the biggest complaints I think you'll see with General Kraken is that a lot of the time he's being directly compared to Mon Mothma. Now, that is one thing maybe in the Nebulon-B's favor slightly, is the fact that, it's only got the 1 evade. Like ships with 2 evades, it really means you want to try and run Mon Mothma instead of Kraken. But again, I like to slow roll my Nebulons, so I don't really want them at speed 3 very often. I like to have them at speed 3 for maybe a turn or 2 tops, and then start slowing down. So I don't feel like I'll get that much out of General Kraken with the Nebulons. Next up, I want to talk about the GR75s. GR75s are actually a pretty decent option with General Kraken. I'll put them both in here. I don't think it really matters which one you run. I think they both could have potentially different advantages. I think the GR75 combat retrofit could be a fun one to be annoying because it does get to shoot. It's only 24 points. I can see this one staying at speed 3 a little bit easier because even if it overshoots your opponent, well, it's got that rear attack, and so you kind of, in a lot of cases with the GR75, you want to be at that higher speed so you can maneuver around and then swing around and show them your rear and then maybe take even 2 shots the following turn. So your GR75 combat retrofit can be good offensively for overshooting your opponent. However, the GR75 medium transport is more likely the one that people tend to use for support, and it's the one that you want to keep alive a little bit more. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about that one. Generally, maybe it's Bomber Command Center or something like that. Or Slicer Tools is probably actually a really good option to run on a GR75 if you're running Kraken, because you're going to be going fast. You're going to want to get into range of their big ships, and then you shouldn't have too much of a problem turning around after that. If you look at their clicks, and they've already got 2 on the 2, 2 on the 3, and then 1 on the 2. So a simple nav command gets you really great turnaround ability, even at speed 3. So it can help keep it alive there. But the GR75 has also got a ton of other things to help keep it alive, like Bright Hope, amazingly good title that when people are shooting at flotillas, a lot of times they're sacrificing other results to make sure that they get those accuracies. So you know, you toss in something like that, or then maybe even a Major Durlin. You know, it becomes increasingly difficult to get damage through. And if the attack is obstructed on top of all of that, your opponent's likely to just say, screw it, I'm not even going to bother. Problem is, if you're at speed 3, you might easily outrun your support. If you are a bomber command center, for example, you're probably going to overshoot the squadrons that you're trying to, you know, protect. So you have to be very careful about how you particularly fly it. So I think the GR75 is kind of hit or miss. I think it's a good option for slicer tools, maybe not so good for stuff like bomber command, just because you may end up going too fast. So it's a little bit risky. High skill curve, though, it can still work. But a lot of it's going to depend on how your opponent positions, if there's room for you to get through. Maybe you have to take a zigzag kind of approach to still stay at speed 3. Maybe you have to fly in the outskirts and hope that your range still covers all of your squadrons. It can be kind of tricky that way. So GR75, say that's maybe the second option. Next one is going to be the MC30. I'll pull them both of them up here, but I think for the most part, I'm going to probably recommend the scout frigate with this option a little bit more. I mean, the torpedo frigate's by far the superior ship, but it doesn't really favor Kraken as much. It's good in some regards in that you want to get really close right away. And it's also good because it has speeds 4 and speed 3, so it has multiple speeds over that. But the thing is, I just feel like this is, because of the 2 evades, this is a ship, in either one of these really, is a ship that just really favors Mon Mothma over General Kraken. And, I mean, obviously, it's got 2 evades. It can use them both at close range. You know, it's really hard to... And then the titles, too. They already have enough defensive stuff. You got Foresight, which works really, really well with Mon Mothma. Admonition, which works really, really, really well with everything. And that can be really cool with Kraken. If you're running Kraken for other stuff already, an MC30 is going to work just dandy. Just going to work really, really well. And you can really, really layer it on if you want to put Lando on there too. Just in case you end up taking a tremendous amount of damage, you can also do that. But the problem is you'll have to stay at high speed. One of the things I like to do, especially with the MC30 torpedo frigate, is there's so many situations where when I do get into close range, that's when I want to slow down. That's when I want to slow down so that I could just go really slow and make sure that I could get like 2 shots out of everything. And that's one of the things I like to do. And so you really can't do that in those cases. But one of the things you can do is ram. And, you know, the equivalent to General Kraken is like Monteferret on the other side. But once you ram, then he goes away. Well, General Kraken doesn't stop you. You know, he says you can ram all you want. One of the things that's not so good about the GR75 is you definitely don't want to be ramming with flotillas, but these guys can potentially ram. They don't want to ram a whole lot. If they can help it, they really don't want to ram. But they can totally ram and then still maybe stay at close range and maybe not move at all, but still technically be at speed 3. I just feel like the scout frigate, though, has in some cases potentially a little more flexibility because it can take those long range shots. It can stay at speed 3, kind of stay on the outskirts and go around and then potentially swoop through and have maybe a little more have more shots that it can take as it's trying to stay at high speeds. Again, I don't really run, I'm going to be honest, I don't run General Kraken an awful lot. And so, you know, it might be worth just taking the torpedo frigate over the scout frigate, even though the scout frigate might give you greater flexibility. I think the torpedo frigate is just so much better at what it does. Especially when you roll all those black dice, you have a so much better chance of getting an accuracy with that blue die that, you know, it might just be worth hoping you get that accuracy and risking, you know, taking some damage at close range. Even if you have to slow down and give them one more die, maybe it's worth it at that point. But either one of those are going to be generally a really good option with Kraken. And generally the torpedo frigate tends to be the better ship, so I'll leave that one up. And yeah, we'll move on with the rest of the ships. Next up, I talked about ramming a little bit. Let's talk about the Hammerheads. Because the Hammerheads, well, Hammerheads aren't super great for Kraken. I really don't like the Scout Corvette in this option because the Scout Corvette is another one of those ships very much like the Nebulon. I try to fly them in a very similar way in that I like to keep the Scout Corvette at long range, taking advantage of the 2 red dice, and I like to, like, I love to give it like something like spinal armament and gunnery teams. Okay, again, Doesn't have the same frontal dice as a Nebulon, but it has the ability to, to take gunnery team, so it can get multiple shots. So I can give it spinal. I can have it 3 red dice in the front. It's still got 3 dice in the front normally, so if they get in medium range, I can still take a lot more shots. But again, I want to generally slow roll this guy. I don't want to run in too fast, because what's the point of taking all these red dice? So if I want to move in fast, I generally would rather take the torpedo corvette at the bottom here. And one of the things that's great is that we're talking about ramming. Well, the Hammerheads have more hull, so they're just better suited to ramming in general. Even though they have only a top speed of 3, you can just keep them at speed 3. That's no problem. You can run concentrate fire commands if you need to. You can start off with a nav if you actually absolutely need to. But you can run Garell's Honor. Garell's Honor is going to be a great title for the Hammerhead Corvette with Kraken. I think this is definitely an option. It's not definitive. It's not like it's not necessarily my best commander for a Corvette, but I think this is definitely an option, because you're gonna, if you want to stay at speed 3, you want to make sure those shots stay obstructed to you. You're kind of a squishy ship to begin with, so any die that you can remove is going to be great. But then when you do get close enough to ram, you can stay at speed 3. You can make sure you ram. You're giving them a face-up damage card. Even if that's a Star Destroyer with those hardened bulkheads, you're still giving it that face-up damage card. Garell's Honor is just a great title to have. Works really well with the Hammerhead Corvette, and I think that it has a lot of synergy with General Kraken. You won't really need to do nav commands very much. You might still want to, just to make sure your aim is true, but I think it gives you just a great ability to make sure you're doing face-up damage to your opponent and also staying at speed 3. Next up, let's see, I didn't miss anything, right? All right, we're going to talk about my favorite small ship for General Kraken, and that's the CR90. Specifically, I'm going to go with the CR90A. There's not a whole ton of difference between the A and the B. It's just the blue dice generally, and then the upgrade. I mean, you can sometimes we'll run Dodonna's Pride on the CR90B, and that's kind of cool. I could see maybe running that, but I want to spend my time here talking about the CR90A. I think this is probably one of the best ships to run with Kraken. It still suffers from the fact that Mon Mothma's better. I mean, it just generally is, especially for the CR90B, because it makes the evades work just the same. However, if you're going to stay at long range, then Kraken can be better. And this is a ship that can actually stay at long range and do it well. So potentially, Kraken has the potential to be better here. So I might put this thing with Jaina's Light, making sure that even if I go up against another Kraken, which, let's face it, I'm not going to, and then I don't have to worry about my attacks cannot be obstructed. So that's good. I can put something like Turbolaser reroutes on this ship, and I'm ready to roll. Maybe I even put engine techs. Maybe I want to actually do some nav commands. I don't really need that though. I think I'll be going fast enough. I won't really need that. But Jaina's Light, great title for a ship that wants to stay at long range, because there's so likely that there's going to be stuff in between. But if I'm staying also at high speeds, I can be circling around, taking that side shot, making sure that it's a double hit. So I'm going to maximize that 1 red die. I'll never lose that 1 red die because of Jaina's Light. So it's not going to be obstructed. My attacks cannot be obstructed. And really good synergy with General Kraken if you can fly it right. And that's good. And even if you end up overlapping an obstacle when you're trying to maintain that position, Jaina's Light helps you for that. So really like that title anyway, but works pretty well with General Kraken. Helps keep your CR90s alive. And if you're running multiple CR90s, especially multiple CR90s with Turbolaser reroute circuits, it also makes it kind of cool, because you can really line up those shots and hopefully take relatively few damage in return. Kind of a cool idea. And the last ship I want to talk about is the Assault Frigate. I don't know if the Assault Frigate is really the best. I still feel like maybe it's the CR90 is the best. Well, we've got the Assault Frigate, which technically does work. And you wouldn't think that it would, because it feels like it's too big to get such a little defensive bonus that seems like it's aimed towards small ships. But again, General Kraken says small or medium ship. Currently, this is still, we're years into Armada. We still only have the 1 medium ship for the Rebels. Would love to see more medium ships, by the way. But yeah, this is a medium ship. It does work under Kraken because it can go up to speed 3. We've got 2 versions, the A and the B. And they're both good for different reasons, but generally I tend to prefer the B. And one of the reasons I think that this is going to actually work really well with Kraken, for one, this is a ship that is more it feels a little bit more like a heavier ship. It's got the brace, it's got the redirect, it's got 4 shields in the front. It's kind of a heavy-duty ship. Only 6 hull, which isn't super crazy, but it's a good ship, right? Here's the thing is those side arcs really make it cool. And what you can do, I mean, in anybody who's flown assault frigates with, and I'm gonna focus more on the assault frigate B, is that, you know, people who've run this with Akbar are very familiar with something like this, right? Gunnery team and enhanced armament, something like that. That might look familiar to you. Really maximizing that side arc. Well, if you're trying to stay at speed 3, and if you're trying to keep things at maybe long range, so you have as few dice as possible coming to you, plus obstructed -1 on top of that, maximizing that side arc is actually going to be very, very effective. I pointed out earlier when I was talking about the CR90, how if you're flying around somebody, a lot of times you'll have, like, you notice my fingers on my hand aren't ever pointed towards the other hand because I'm flying around trying to stay at speed 3, trying to maximize the benefit from Aaron Kraken. I think in the case of the assault frigate, you're really getting a great benefit because it's a tremendously good side arc ship, and it's the best long range side arc ship to work with Kraken. And you know that if you fly it in that circular strafing kind of pattern, it can really work well, especially if you've got gunnery team and maybe even enhanced armament. Granted, enhanced armament isn't required in this case. You can run turbo laser reroute circuits with this thing as well. You know, so you have a lot of, you know, there's a decent amount of options that you could run here. But these are pretty survivable ships, and Kraken can help make them even more survivable because they can stay at speed 3. They have moderate maneuverability at speed 3, so you may still want to run some nav commands and things like that. But you know, I kind of like the assault frigates. They're not too expensive. They're very, very well-rounded. They're very well-rounded ships, and they even have the evade for some dice cancellation. So I think Kraken giving them an extra, you know, die removal is actually very useful. It can be useful at all ranges, and they have the shields and hull to potentially survive even those close range attacks if they do have to come in close and maybe get that double arc on you at close range. It could even help them survive that. They're one of the few ships that can pull it off. I think the other one in this list that could pull that off would probably be the MC-30, especially if it has admonition. Could pull that off, could survive maybe a gladiator hit at close range. Would be great. So I guess this is that's been the list, guys. That's I don't think I missed any of the ships that are gonna be able to work with Aaron Kraken. So that's about it. I'll be honest with you, again, I don't fly him very much. I've flown against him. I don't know if I've used him more than once, to be honest with you. So let me know if your experiences differ from mine, and I will be doing more commander breakdowns. A lot of you have asked me about Imperial commanders. I am still waiting until we get more Super Star Destroyer clarification before I do my Imperial commander list, because I'm still waiting to hear on certain theories about synergy between how is Mahdi going to affect that, how is Constantine going to affect that. You know, there are a lot of little things like that. So once those things get clarified, I will start doing the Imperial commander breakdown, because there could be synergies that we're not aware of yet, and I don't want to start speculating on how mechanics are going to interchange before we know for sure. So I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. Hop on Crabbok.com. Don't forget and check out my Discord. Big thanks to all my patrons on Patreon as well. I want to thank you guys so much. You helped make this all possible. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a great day.